somewhere in a boardroom right now, a spreadsheet is quietly deciding which black neighborhood disappears next. And the fun part? It's completely legal. Today we're counting down 12 American cities where the house your grandmother bought for pocket change is now worth more than she earned in her entire life. And the people who built these blocks can't afford to stand on them anymore. One Atlanta home jumped from $345,000 to $1.7 million in a single decade. Same bricks. Somebody just decided it was fancy now. Nashville developers flipped houses for a 45% profit in about a year, mostly by mailing retirees until they surrendered. Portland bulldozed a whole black neighborhood and then left the lots empty for 40 years just to be safe. And a city literally nicknamed Chocolate City lost 61,000 black residents. Poof. If watching hedge funds speed-run your city's soul into a luxury condo sounds like a good time, hit subscribe. I do this every single day, and my landlord is not cheap either. Number 12. Durham, North Carolina. We start in the Bull City in a historic black district called Haiti. Back in the 1960s, the state ran the NC 147 freeway straight through the middle of it, which wiped out more than 4,000 households and 500 black-owned businesses. Classic American city planning. Build a highway through the neighborhood, bulldoze the tax base, and then act genuinely shocked when the neighborhood struggles for the next 50 years. Fast forward to now, and Southside, right next to Haiti, tells the whole story in one obscene number. The median sale price went from about $20,000 in 2012 to $216,000 in 2016. That is not a typo, by the way. That's a roughly tenfold jump in 4 years, on streets where families had held on through everything. Brand new construction is now landing at $450,000 and up, dropped in like a spaceship next to 100-year-old bungalows. Rents in the area jumped more than 36% in 6 years, and a Duke study found the black-white home value gap in Durham grew by 287% over half a century. Picture Rigsby Avenue. Weathered, hand-painted "We buy houses," signs stapled to telephone poles, sitting right next to glossy developer placards with rooftop patio mock-ups. Same block. Two totally different futures, and only one of them has your grandma in it. The city keeps winning national Best Places to Live awards, which is objectively hilarious if you happen to be the family getting taxed off the exact block that made Durham cool in the first place. This decision to sell seemed small to a lot of longtime owners at the time. It very much wasn't. Number 11. Richmond, Virginia. Jackson Ward in Richmond earned the nickname the Harlem of the South, and it earned it, honestly. This was the beating heart of black business in America. Maggie Walker built the St. Luke Penny Savings Bank right here, becoming the first black woman to charter a bank in the entire country. This was black wealth, generations before anyone made a documentary about it. Today, Jackson Ward is around 23% black, and its black population fell another 10% just between 2010 and 2020. Head over to the Church Hill neighborhood, and the flip is almost cartoonishly lopsided. Black homeowners dropped by roughly a quarter, while white homeowners rose 159%. Median sale prices there climbed from about $165,000 to $215,000 in just 4 years. Citywide, Richmond now has about 3,600 fewer black homeowners than it did back in 2000. And here's the historical gut punch. The same interstate that sliced Jackson Ward in half decades ago is now the thing developers want to cap and build luxury real estate on top of. They call it Reconnect Jackson Ward. So the highway destroyed the neighborhood, and now covering up the highway will finish the job by pricing out whoever's left. If you're wondering how the people who cause the problem always end up profiting from the solution, so is everyone else. Look for Baker Street's old row houses and the murals painted for the district's 150th anniversary, standing guard over a neighborhood that's being quietly rewritten around them. Number 10. Los Angeles, California. Leimert Park is the cultural capital of Black Los Angeles. Jazz on Degnan Boulevard, the Vision Theater, ESO One books, the whole spirit of Nipsey Hussle's Buy Back the Block. It is sacred ground. It is also where average home values climbed 132%, from about $410,000 to $900,000, in a neighborhood where the median black household income is closer to $58,000 a year. You run that math and the panic sets in fast because incomes did not go up 132%. They barely moved. Here's the mechanism that makes Limert especially grim. Out-of-town investors have been mailing and cold-calling elderly homeowners with lowball cash offers designed to catch people who don't know what their house is truly worth. The Los Angeles Times documented one owner getting offered around $550,000 for a home actually worth over $1 million. That is not a deal. That is a stranger in a fleece vest betting your grandmother has never heard of Zillow. And nearby in Baldwin Hills and View Park, some of the wealthiest historically black enclaves in America are feeling the same squeeze. Down on Degnan Boulevard, a shop called Soul Folks and a handful of stubborn owners have been trying to buy their own buildings before the buildings buy them, block by block, the slow and expensive way. Add the new Metro K line running down Crenshaw in the shadow of SoFi Stadium looming over Inglewood next door, and the pressure just keeps climbing, and somehow it gets worse from here. Number 9. Brooklyn and Harlem, New York. You cannot make a gentrification list and skip New York. That would be like making a list of loud things and forgetting fireworks. Bedford-Stuyvesant was about 75% black in 2000. By 2022, it was closer to 42%. In just the decade from 2010 to 2020, Bed-Stuy lost around 22,000 black residents and gained roughly 30,000 white ones. And those famous brownstones off Fulton Street now regularly sell for well over $1 million each. This is the neighborhood that raised notorious B.I.G. and Jay-Z, and it is being repriced like a stock split. Cross the river to Harlem, the single most famous black neighborhood on planet Earth, and it lost more than 10,000 black residents in that same decade, while gaining almost 19,000 white ones. Black residents aren't even the largest group in Harlem anymore. Strivers Row, the historic blocks where the black elite once lived, now sits in a neighborhood where Latino residents have quietly become the plurality. The engine here isn't a bike trail, it's raw, Manhattan-adjacent finance money, treating century-old row houses like they're options contracts. Nobody's mailing grandma in New York. They're just letting the number get so big she can't say no. The A train that Duke Ellington sang about still runs uptown. It just drops you off in a neighborhood he might not recognize. If this is the first city on the list that genuinely bums you out, that's the point. And this is a great moment to smash that like button so the algorithm shows this to more people who need to see it. Now let's keep going, because the next one literally flooded. Number 8. New Orleans, Louisiana. Before Hurricane Katrina, New Orleans was about 67% black, roughly 325,000 people. Today, the black population is closer to 204,000. That is a loss of more than 120,000 people, and the city's black share has slipped under 60%. Researchers gave this its own grim nickname: gentrification by flood. Here's how it worked. After the storm, public housing that flooded got demolished and replaced with fewer units at much higher rents, which is a fascinating way to help people who just lost everything. Median rents jumped about 33% while paychecks stayed flat. Short-term rentals swallowed entire blocks so tourists could sip cocktails where families used to live. Then came the truly dystopian twist. A federal study found that higher elevation neighborhoods, the land that doesn't flood, were over 80% black in 2000 and got noticeably whiter and wealthier by 2015. So in New Orleans, climate change itself became a gentrifying force. The dry ground is now premium real estate, and the people who had the generational wisdom to live on it first are the exact people getting pushed off it. Whole streets that once rang with brass bands now sit dark 11 months a year, a lockbox on every door waiting for the next bachelorette party to check in. Treme, the oldest black neighborhood in America, the birthplace of the Second Line and a chunk of jazz itself, sits right in the crosshairs, next to the lower Ninth Ward and its rows of shotgun houses. In fairness, some longtime residents will tell you the newcomers actually respect the culture, and that black families were already leaving the city before the storm ever hit. That's a real debate, and it deserves to be said out loud. But 120,000 missing people is a very hard number to argue your way around. Number 7. Seattle, Washington. Seattle's Central District was 73% black in 1970. Today, it's under 20%. The city's overall black population has dropped below 7%. If you've ever wondered what a tech boom does to a historic black neighborhood, the corner of 23rd and Union is your answer. And the answer is not gentle. This is Amazon's hometown. And when a flood of six-figure tech salaries slams into a fixed supply of houses, property values, and tax bills go straight vertical. Longtime black homeowners, especially older ones on fixed incomes, suddenly can't afford the taxes on a house they already own outright. No mortgage, no debt. Taxed out anyway. Only about a quarter of black residents in King County own their homes, the lowest rate of any group in the county. Jimi Hendrix grew up in this neighborhood. Earl's Cuts and Styles, Frank's Barbershop over at 23rd, and Jackson, the whole corridor of black-owned businesses, all of it has been fighting just to hang on while the espresso bars move in. But there are bright spots worth naming. The Wana Wari Art Space and the new Africa Town Plaza are holdouts planting a flag in the ground and saying, plainly, we were here and we are still here. Real quick, if you're finding this genuinely useful and not just quietly enraging, do yourself a favor and subscribe. I break down where America is actually affordable, where it very much is not, and where the next wave is coming, every single day. All right, so here's where things get bigger, because the last 5 cities are the true heavy hitters. Number 6. Austin, Texas. Here's a fact that should stop you cold. In the decade from 2000 to 2010, Austin was the only fast-growing major American city in the entire country whose black population actually shrank. Let that geography sink in. Everybody on Earth was moving to Austin. Black residents were being moved out. Zoom into historically black East Austin, and the numbers get almost comically brutal. In that same decade, the white population rose 442%, while the black population fell 66% and the Latino population fell 33%. East Austin home prices rose more than 50% in just 2 years, from 2013 to 2015. In one census tract, home values are up over 200% since 2000. And here's the part that turns your stomach. This land was literally zoned as the Negro District back in 1928. The city corralled black residents into East Austin on purpose, drew a line on a map, and forced them there. Then, 80 years later, the tech industry showed up and priced them right back out of the one place they'd been shoved into. 93% of surveyed long-term residents said rising property taxes were their single biggest fear. On MLK Jr. Boulevard, near Houston Tillotson University on Chicon Street, someone once installed a vending machine at South by Southwest, selling relics of Austin businesses that had already closed. Dark and completely accurate. Austin sells itself as weird, progressive, the live music capital of the world. It just quietly forgot to keep the people who made a lot of that music in the first place. Number 5. Oakland, California. Oakland was the birthplace of the Black Panther Party. It was once 47% black, a genuine capital of black political and cultural power. Today, that share has fallen from about 36% in 2000 to under 24%. One count found an absolute loss of nearly 44,000 black residents, around 31%, in just 14 years. That's not a slow drift, that's an evacuation. The culprit is geography, plus one very convenient train. Oakland sits a single quick BART ride from San Francisco, so when the tech money in the Bay Area detonated, Oakland instantly became the affordable overflow valve. Rents and taxes soared. Then, after the 2008 foreclosure crisis wrecked an enormous number of black homeowners, investors swooped in and bought up the wreckage at fire sale prices, converting former family homes into rentals. Families that had been in West Oakland's beautiful Victorian houses for 3 and 4 generations got scattered out to Antioch and Stockton, an hour or more from the city their grandparents helped build. The Black Cultural Zone over in East Oakland is one of the organized efforts fighting to hold whatever ground is left. Think about that for a second. The city that gave America one of its most iconic black movements is now less than a quarter black. The Panthers ran their free breakfast program out of these very neighborhoods. Now the same corners rent for more per month than a lot of those kids' parents used to make in a year. The murals stayed. The people who painted them mostly couldn't. Number 4, Portland, Oregon. Portland is the whitest big city in America, and I regret to inform you it worked very hard to get that way. The Albina district was the heart of Black Portland. So the city ran Interstate 5 straight through it, dropped a Memorial Coliseum on top of it, and then cleared a huge swath of land for a hospital expansion that raised hundreds of black-owned homes. Here's the part that sounds made up but isn't. Some of those cleared lots near the old Emmanuel Hospital sat completely empty for decades. They demolished a thriving black neighborhood for a project and then just never built the project. For roughly 40 years, those lots were weeds and gravel, a monument to a promise nobody kept. No, I'm not making that up. Between 1990 and 2010, more than 11,000 black residents were forced out of Albina, and roughly 13% of Portland's entire black community was displaced in a single decade. The Boise neighborhood inside Albina flipped from over 70% black to 25% black and 65% white in about 20 years. Then green development, light rail lines, and trendy new apartment blocks finished the job, pushing families out to the far edges of East Portland and Gresham, where the sidewalks sometimes just stop. There's now a group called the Albina Vision Trust trying to literally reroute black Portlanders back into the neighborhood their grandparents were pushed out of. Whether it works is the open question hanging over the entire city. There's a quiet lesson buried in that gravel about how fast a place can be unmade and how much longer it takes to build one back. Number 3, Atlanta, Georgia. Now we've reached the retention peak, and Atlanta absolutely earns it. This is the black cultural capital of the South, home of the civil rights movement, and it got slammed with the most intense gentrification in the entire country during the 2000s. The star exhibit is the Old Fourth Ward, the neighborhood where Martin Luther King Jr. was born. In one single census tract there, the median home value went from about $345,000 in 2010 to $1.7 million in 2020. Same decade, nearly 5 times the price. The median income in that little pocket rose from around $30,000 to over $220,000. The black population of that tract collapsed from over 4,500 people in 1970 to about 1,500 by 2020. Across 16 majority black tracts, Atlanta lost more than 22,000 black residents, and even the West End saw home values roughly double. So what did it? A walking trail. I am completely serious. The Beltline's East Side Trail opened in 2012. Developers stacked luxury towers along it, Ponce City Market became a national destination, and the money came rolling in like a tide. Then stack the investor problem on top, which is worse in Atlanta than almost anywhere on Earth. Wall Street landlords have snapped up more than 65,000 metro Atlanta homes, and in some counties, institutional investors own close to 80% of the single-family rentals. And there's one more Atlanta-specific trap you need to know about. Roughly 7 in 10 black Americans die without a will. Georgia alone has an estimated $34 billion in heirs property, land passed down informally with clouded titles. That paperwork gap makes it stunningly easy for a family to lose property that's been theirs for a century, sometimes to a single distant relative selling their share to a developer. Sweet Auburn, Vine City, the old Bankhead area now renamed Hamilton E. Holmes Drive, the pressure is everywhere. If you value your city's history, buy back the block before the block installs a rooftop pool and a doggy daycare. Number 2, Nashville, Tennessee. Nashville is not just on this list. By one major national analysis, Nashville was the single most gentrified city in America for the entire decade of the 2000s. Music City indeed. The neighborhood to watch is North Nashville, zip code 37208, the historic black hub anchored by 3 legendary institutions: Fisk University, Tennessee State, and Meharry Medical College. Its black population share dropped from about 60% to 38%, the single largest drop in the entire county. Home prices in that zip code ran from roughly $380,000 in 2020 to $585,000 by 2024, well over 50% in 4 years. And of course, an interstate had already sliced this neighborhood in half back in the 1960s, because that is apparently the one move every American city knows by heart. But here's the detail almost everyone missed while it was happening. Researchers documented a tactic they named reverse blockbusting. Developers were buying homes from longtime black owners at below-market prices and reselling them for an average 45% return in about a year. How did they pressure people into selling? Relentless phone calls, letters, and knocks on the door, combined with rising property taxes, crushing older owners on fixed incomes who hadn't yet qualified for a tax freeze. It was a war of attrition against retirees. One third-generation resident, Lashananda Key, watched her family's rental on 14th Avenue North get sold out from under them in 2018 with almost no warning. A judge gave them 2 months to get out. In her own words, they were pushing all the black people out and putting all the white people in. That's the moment this stops being funny. Look at the empty lots on 26th Avenue North where bungalows used to stand, and the music venues on Jefferson Street that closed for good. Number 1. Washington, D.C. And here it is, the most thoroughly documented case of black displacement in America. They call it Chocolate City. They may not be able to for very much longer. Washington ranked as the single most intensely gentrified city in the country in the 2000s, with roughly 20,000 black residents displaced in barely more than a decade. Zoom all the way out over 50 years and D.C. shows the largest impact of any metro in the entire nation. A loss of more than 61,000 black residents and a gain of over 54,000 white residents inside gentrifying, once majority black neighborhoods. In the Shaw neighborhood, the white share of residents exploded from about 11% to over 61%. East of the river in Anacostia, a community that was historically 95% black, median sale prices multiplied about 2.5 times in just 4 years, and the black share of home purchase loans out there slid from 92% to 75%. Now here's the human face of it, and it's the best kind of stubborn. On U Street, the old black Broadway that gave us the Howard Theater and sits right beside Howard University, there's a family business called Lee's Flower and Card Shop, founded in 1945. Still open. Why is it still open when almost everything around it changed hands? Because the Lee family bought their own building back in 1968 for $75,000. As the current owner put it, if they were just renting, they'd be long gone. Ben's Chili Bowl survived the exact same way. So did Industrial Bank. The lesson every displaced neighborhood learns a little too late is that in America, you don't truly own your spot until you own the ground underneath it. And in 2019, when a phone store near a shiny new luxury building tried to shut off the go-go music that had played on that corner for decades, all because one new resident complained about the noise, the whole neighborhood detonated. #Don'tMuteDC. It grew into a citywide movement almost overnight. Because at some point, a community that has been quietly erased for 50 years decides that it is finally completely done being quiet. You can stand on that one corner and watch the entire story play out at once. A go-go legend painted 20 feet tall on one wall and a $2,000 studio apartment listed right behind it. One honest note, because DC is genuinely complicated. This is not a clean black versus white story. The city also added tens of thousands of Latino residents across these same decades, and the real picture is far messier than any single cartoon villain. But messier does not mean gentler. Chocolate City is melting, and everyone who lives there can feel the temperature rising. So that's the countdown. Durham, Richmond, Los Angeles, New York, New Orleans, Seattle, Austin, Oakland, Portland, Atlanta, Nashville, and Washington, D.C. 12 different cities. 12 different flavors of the exact same recipe. A highway here, a walking trail there, a hedge fund with a spreadsheet, a property tax bill grandma can't cover, and a cash offer that shows up at the precise moment a family is most vulnerable. None of this is a conspiracy cooked up in a dark room. Honestly, it's worse than that. It's just the machine running exactly as it was designed to run, one appraisal at a time, one tax reassessment at a time, one polite little postcard at a time. And the same pattern is already creeping into Charlotte, into Chicago's Bronzeville, into Baltimore, so this list is going to need a sequel whether any of us like it or not. Here's the one thing I actually want you to walk away with. Home equity is how the vast majority of American families pass wealth down to their kids. It's the whole ballgame. So when a neighborhood gets priced out, it isn't just losing a zip code or a couple of good restaurants. It's losing the single asset that was supposed to make the next generation a little better off than the last one. Every time a longtime family sells for a fraction of what their block is about to be worth, a chunk of generational wealth just quietly changes hands. That is the real story hiding behind every cheerful, up-and-coming neighborhood headline you've ever scrolled past. If this made you look at your own city a little differently, do me a genuine favor and subscribe, because I go hunting for these patterns every single day. The good neighborhoods, the doomed ones, and the ones you can still actually afford if you move fast enough. Drop a comment with your city and tell me honestly whether you think it's next on the list. And if you happen to own the ground under your own 2 feet, hold on to it with everything you've got. Because somewhere out there in an office you'll never see, there's a spreadsheet with your address already on it. And it is very, very patient.